What is going on, you guys? So right behind me is the new Audi E-Tron Sportback, and this is the Edition 1. So in this video, we're going to go over every detail about this new electric Audi. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, everyone, let's go ahead and check out the Audi E-Tron Sportback Edition 1. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the price. This is an expensive vehicle. This one is $90,000. Specifically, it's $89,000 to start. And then as you see it, it's a little bit more than that. One of my favorite things on the Sportback, at least this Edition 1 model, is this color. It is beautiful, guys. Especially in the sun, you can see a really good amount of flake to it. It looks great, especially with all these like almost orangish yellow accents going around the car, and I think it looks really good. Now, there are differences in the front on the Sportback compared to the normal E-Tron, and that's going to be these side vents right here. They're a little bit bigger, a little bit more pronounced, I guess, and I quite like it. I think it looks great, and you are going to have these LED daytime running lights, which you guys can see there. They look really cool. I like how they have these little bars underneath to the side. It gives it a cool, unique look, and every time you see that, you know that it's an E-Tron, and it has this really nice, almost smoked out look going around the outside of the lens. Now, obviously, this has full LED lights. It looks really good at night, and you do have an animation, so whenever you unlock the car at night, you are going to have this nice little animation that it does. What we don't have here in the US are those awesome projectors which do things like light up the pathway in front of you when you're driving at night, or show the cool animations on the ground or on basically walls in front of you. Because of US regulations, we cannot get that for the US model, but our brothers and sisters overseas do get it in their Audi E-Tron. So unfortunately, you pay that much money and you don't really get access to all the features. So that's a huge bummer. Now, coming to the front, you do have this grille. It is mostly blocked off because once again, you don't need as much airflow as you would on a traditional gasoline engine. And then coming down here, you just have more airflow, more areas located there, as well as some functional vents off to the side that will basically decrease turbulence off to the side of the car. Now, as we move to the wheels, you've got these awesome wheels, and I really like the design of them. I think Audi did a really good job with these wheels. You've got these orange brake calipers located right behind there that look equally as good. And obviously, you're gonna have things like your regenerative braking and standard electric vehicle, things like that. And then you are going to have your E-Tron branded charging port right here. So you just push this button and it should open up. It's on right now, so it's actually not going to open up. But you have one charging port on each side. Over here is going to be your fast charging on the left side, and then on the right side is going to be your just standard charging port that you would use to plug in at home and things like that. Now, as you come off to the side, you have this interesting aluminum piece right here, which Audi says is supposed to represent the charging bars on a battery. Not sure if I quite see it, but you guys can be the judge of that. And then as I move back to the side profile, this thing looks way better than a standard E-Tron, especially with these wheels. This Edition 1 looks great. I love this chrome accent going around the windows, and the whole thing looks amazing. This pulls off the Sportback look better than any other Sportback vehicle I've seen. Now, as we come to the rear quarter panel, this is one of my favorite angles because, I mean, just look at how cool this thing looks. It looks so sporty. Now, you have the same animation here on the rear taillights, same as the normal E-Tron, nothing too different there. So it's got this really cool, almost like bow and arrow sort of look to it. E-Tron badge located there, Quattro badge located there, and you are going to have this rear diffuser sort of thing here, but I doubt it's very functional. One thing I did not mention is you are going to have lights, puddle lights, for the Edition 1, and it's basically going to be on all four doors, and it's one of the most vivid puddle lights I think I've ever seen. But that's pretty much going to be it for the walk around. Let's go ahead and check out the inside. Okay, so here's your key for the Audi E-Tron. You have your lock, trunk release, unlock, Audi symbol. On the back, you're going to have your E-Tron right there. It's going to have a panic button, and then this button is to release a physical key to get in and out of the vehicle if this key dies, or if this battery dies, or if the battery on the car were to die. Now, I can use this to get in. I can also use these touch sensitive areas on the door. I would basically press my finger there. It'll beep, meaning that it's locked, and there's a touchpad behind here, and that's going to unlock the car. All right, so getting inside of the e-tron. Now, hopping in, one thing I do like is it has a pretty good entry height. So being a little bit taller, I don't have a problem getting in. I don't have to duck as much to get in here as well. And then the door materials are really good on here. So I've got like this soft plastic. I'm gonna have some Alcantara here. I am gonna have ambient lighting here in the door, which looks really, really good. And one of my favorite features is this door handle. So it has like this floating door handle design. I can put my hand on top of it, underneath it, right in front of it, and it just feels very cool. Your switches, this beautiful blue leather. You have your storage pockets right down here, trunk release, and then you have 2 memory seat settings there. Other than that, if I come over here, I am gonna have this storage space, which is massive. Like, look how deep this goes. So I actually have this, which fit all the way inside of there. So you can easily throw your wallet or anything pretty large, maybe like a book, you can fit in there. It's pretty insane. Your light switch is there, and then you're gonna have all of your switches right here for your seating controls, and this middle button is gonna be for your massage seats, and I'll show you guys those different settings in just a second. But on top of that, you have this beautiful blue leather on here, and the seating is just very comfortable, very nice. It's not heavily bolstered, but it's good enough for everyday driving, which is what this car is mainly for. So let's go ahead and check out the rest of the interior. All right, starting the e-tron is very easy. Foot in the brake, I'm gonna hit this start-stop button to start. And if you guys heard that, that is your welcome sound, which you can actually adjust whenever you're going through the screens in here. So that's pretty cool. Now let's go ahead and start with seating position. You feel very nice. I've got a lot of width here. I've got these nice pads right here so I can rest my knees. I like the steering wheel. Nice leather design, white stitching here. You've got this nice aluminum accent, the same as a normal e-tron. Over to the right are your media commands with voice commands, volume, previous, next. Over to the left is what I'll use to control this virtual cockpit in front of me, which I will get to in just a second. Other than that, I have paddles right behind here. These are to adjust your regen. I have it to where it starts off with no regen, it'll just coast. And this thing will coast forever. It's pretty impressive. It'll coast very, very far. And then I will pull the negative paddle, and that will basically increase my charge, and there's 3 levels you can increase it to. Now over here I am going to have my standard wipers, over here to the left my blinkers, but on the end of that I am going to have this button here for my like lane keep assist, where it'll basically steer the car for me, though I do have to keep my hands on the wheel. And then over here to the far left is my cruise control stock down there. We already talked about the left side. As you come back to this screen, it's really cool. So if you guys can see here, you got this really unique setup, which is specific to the e-tron. Right now I have it in dynamic, and right over here is a little boost gauge. So I'm in park. If I go into drive and then pull back one more time, it's gonna activate that boost area, and it'll go away once I go into normal drive. So that's pretty cool. And then over here you just have your speed, and you don't have a tack, so basically you have a percentage based off of how much percentage you go onto the accelerator, and it'll show right there. So very cool. Then I can use the buttons on the steering wheel to go back and forth, switch my views, and just make it look whatever I want it to look like. Now as we come up, you do have a head-up display located up here. A little hard touch plastic up here, which I'm surprised to see, but you do have soft touch here. You have leather located here, speakers up here for your Bang & Olufsen sound system, this really nice wood. And you have a little e-tron badge right here. Now, this e-tron badge is gonna light up at night depending on what color you pick. So that is very cool. And I'm actually a huge fan of this wood. It's like a matte finish, and it's like a dark, or like a dark-ish gray, and it just creates a really modern look. I really like it. Audi's MMI system, which works pretty quickly. I know swiping to and fro like that, it does a decent job. It's not the fastest, but you know, the graphics and just the overall look of it is very nice. Now, one thing I do really like is I can go through here and adjust different things like massage seats, which we talked about. So here are your massage seats, all of your different settings, different intensities. Right there you have 3 different levels, and that's for driver and passenger. I also have a drive select here, charging, where I can see basically my battery use. I can have like targets that I want to hit in terms of efficiency, and then light and visibility. I can go through here and I can adjust all of my interior lighting. Now if you're watching this overseas, there is something missing here, and you don't have the projector lights on this. So over in Europe you have those really cool projector lights that'll shoot all the images onto the ground. This doesn't have it because of US regulations. Mega bummer, and it's kind of upsetting that you are paying for vehicles you don't really have full access to. So come on, America, we need those features because they're awesome and they're properly show-offy, so I can show everyone that I have a cool Audi. Other than that, drive select, which you have right there, and you can go through and adjust your different modes. You also have air suspension on here, which you can raise and lower as well. That's pretty much the gist of this right here. And then, of course, the ambient lighting in here looks absolutely amazing. You guys already know Audi is some of the best in terms of lighting technology. Now moving down here, you have a second screen. This is basically all for climate control and anything that's not like car related specifically. So I can swipe over, adjust my temp right there, or I can do the traditional way and just hit the plus and the minus. I can touch the seat to bring back up my seating controls up here, which I can use to adjust my basically thigh support, and then go through and turn on my massage seats as well. Or I can use that button I showed you guys on the side of the seat. Heated and cooled seats for both driver and passenger. You have basically a perfume that'll spray, and if I hit that, it'll basically give me a few options here. So if I go to fragrance, I have a winter scent or a summer scent, and I could select basically how strong those scents are, and it smells really good, so that's a plus. Other than that, you have your home link down here, and you're gonna have a few different options like your heated steering wheel, which I can pull up through, I believe, this setting. It's kind of hard to find a few of these things, but either way, I know there's a heated steering wheel on here somewhere. I just cannot find it. So that's the one thing about these systems, you kind of get lost with all the different features. Down here you have drive select, traction, hazards, front defrost, rear defrost, your camera modes, which I can pull up right here, 360, backup camera. You have this cool 3D mode, which I can actually go around it, and that looks so cool. Definitely one of my favorite things. And I can get like a side view, overhead view, and it's just very helpful. Now, other than that, you've got your volume. I've got my shifter, which this whole piece doesn't move. It's just this outside piece. I can go to drive, pull back again to go into sport mode, all the way forward for reverse, which will bring up my backup camera again. Park is a button off to the side. Electronic parking brake. You have this huge area, which is all open. There's nothing to like close it. So if you want this to look more like, I guess, cohesive, you can't really do that because there's no cover for this. Now, as you go through here, you have your cup holders, which are pretty far down. You can actually clip these off to the side if you need like a more open area. This has a cover though, which is kind of strange. And then you have a wireless charging pad in there. I basically slide my phone in sideways, just like this. And that's gonna charge my phone. 12-volt in there. Lift up your armrest and you have a good amount of storage space located here. Folding that down, I've got my standard glove box here, which is lockable, frameless mirror located up here, touch sensitive lights, and then you are going to have this massive pano roof, which I can open all the way up. And that's pretty much gonna wrap up the interior. So let's go ahead and check out the back seat. All right, guys, sitting in the back of the E-Tron Sportback. Now, because you have the slanted roof line, you get a little bit less headspace, but it's not this significant difference like you would expect. I still have a good amount of headroom being 6 feet tall. My hair is touching though. So my hair is about a good 2 inches above me. So if you're 6'2", 6'3", you may be hitting your head a little bit here. Now, I have this seat set to where I would be sat being 6 feet tall. I've got about 2 inches, maybe 2.5 inches behind myself, and my feet room is really good as well. Now, shutting the door, I mean, typical German quality, super solid shut. You have this sunscreen shade right here. You are going to have the same door material, so very soft up top. You're gonna have Alcantara, blue leather, this nice door handle, and your storage cubbies are actually pretty decent as well. Now you do have 4 vents, 2 here in the middle, 2 on the outside, which is great for rear passengers. You can also adjust your climate control back here as well as like rear heated seats. You're gonna have 2 USBs located down here, 12-volt, 2 map pockets, and on top of that, if I fold down this middle armrest, you have your cup holders. I'm not a big fan of this design though. It's kind of weird. I think bottled drinks would fit in here fine, but if you live in America, you go through a drive-through and you put something bigger in here, it's not gonna feel very secure, and the whole thing just feels a little on the flimsy side. But if I lift up this armrest, I've got some pretty shallow space I can use here to maybe put a phone or something like that. And then on top, you actually have a good amount of give, so I can use this as an armrest, and it feels pretty good. It's not the most plush thing, but it is a nice area to rest your arm if you need to. Other than that, you've got the same beautiful blue leather with the white stitching, white piping as well. Beautiful view because of this panoramic roof, LED lights, and of course your grab handles, hooks, and standard things like that. But that's pretty much it for the back seat. Let's go ahead and check out the trunk space. Okay, so coming to the back of the e-tron Sportback. Now, obviously, you've got a very short end right here, and the window ends right here, so you have this really small area. We've already talked about aesthetics, but I just think it's really cool. Now, to lift up, there's a button located right under here. You're gonna push that, it's gonna lift up. You can obviously use your key. Now, very important, this lifts up very high. I'm 6 feet tall. Look how much space I have. My hair isn't even touching. So I can be about 6'3", 6'4", and you can still get underneath here without hitting your head, and obviously you can adjust the height on this as well. Now, as you're back here, you're going to have a good amount of space, obviously not as much as the normal e-tron, but it's still well enough that I'm willing to make the sacrifice for a much better looking vehicle. Now you're gonna lift this up, and you have a super deep storage pocket down in there with a spare back there as well. You're gonna have storage cubbies off to the side, and you even have these super bright LED lights in the back. So at night you can see everything you need to, and then obviously you can fold the second row down. That way you just have a lot more usable space. But here's the cubic feet if you guys want to see that, and here's the cubic feet compared to the normal e-tron. Let's go ahead and see what's under the hood. All right, so as we come under the hood of the Audi E-Tron Sportback, now just like the normal e-tron, you have this interesting area which kind of looks like an engine cover, but your front motor that powers the wheels is going to be located underneath here. Now you lift up this little area, and you have this tiny little trunk area or frunk area. It is very like flimsy, so the whole thing is just very, it doesn't feel like it would last very long. So I'm very surprised to see that it's not a more heavy duty material, but either way, you have an LED light in here. I've got the charging cables located here. And if you guys want to take a closer look at the charging cables, here's your two options. You have your standard outlet that you can use for like an iron, you know, a hair dryer, same outlet right here, your standard 3-prong, and then you're gonna have your bigger outlet, which is gonna be used to charge your car even faster. So this is gonna come included with your Audi e-tron or e-tron Sportback. But that's pretty much gonna be it for the front. Let's go ahead and get this on the road and see how it does. All right, you guys, driving the Audi e-tron Sportback. Now, first things first, if you have headphones, throw them on. I'm using binaural audio, that way you guys can get pulled into this auditory experience with me. And you have to hear how this thing sounds. So here's a few clips of how this car sounds. The sound is so cool. One of my favorite things about this car, and it has such a unique feel to it. Everyone that has heard it says it's the coolest thing ever, and they love it. So I'm coming up to a stop right now, and I'm gonna get on it. That way you guys can hear what it sounds like from inside the car. So as you come to a stop, you can hear all that whirring and just low frequencies as you come to a stop, and then once you accelerate, it's very cool. It's very sci-fi, very spaceship-like. I quite like it. And I'll slow down a bit, and you can hear all of that whirring as the regenerative braking kicks in. But the cool thing about this car is it feels really good to drive. It feels very Audi. The only thing is that when you go over kind of hard bumps, like speed bumps, if you go over them too quickly, the weight of this car just, boom, compresses onto that suspension. And this car actually doesn't have a ton of suspension travel. So because of that, you get this hard jolt. And that's something you don't get in like a Q7, Q8. And you do get that here because all that weight is just, boom, compressing onto that suspension. That is one thing I've noticed in terms of negatives. I took this on a range test, which you guys are about to see in just a second, and it performed very well. It was very comfortable, and I mean the car feels like an Audi. It's gorgeous. I prefer the looks of this over the normal e-tron, and it feels great. The acceleration is okay from a stop, but it's even better once you're just rolling and you just mat it. I mean, it's got more push than a Q7 or a Q8. If you go from those cars and you come into this, you're going to be definitely impressed. It's not obviously as fast as a Tesla, but it's faster than its equivalent gas counterparts, and that's what's important. It feels more accessible, it feels nicer, it feels smoother than a Q7 or a Q8. Other than that, it's pretty much going to wrap up driving impressions. It's the same as the normal e-tron, but let's go ahead and see if this has any range benefits over the normal e-tron. Okay, you guys, so on the highway in the Audi e-tron now, I'm already about halfway through my trip. I have an hour and 35 minutes to go. I've traveled about 46.7 miles exactly. And we've been getting 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. And I started with 222 miles. I now have 172 miles remaining. So, this always changes. That's the thing with electric cars. Depending on where you are, depending on how you're driving, it's always fluctuating. And with living out here in Southern California, especially where I started, in Orange County, it's very hilly. As you get here to LA, it's a little bit more flat. And then once you get past LA, it's gonna start getting a little bit more hilly again. So I'm very, very curious to see how this whole thing is gonna play out. But on the highway, it's very comfortable. I have it on cruise control. I highly suggest turning off the feature where it slows down every time you pass a speed limit sign, because let's say if I was 3 miles, 4 miles over the speed limit, it will pull me all the way back down to the speed limit, and then I'm holding up traffic, and it's just hard to stay with the flow of traffic whenever you have that feature on. That's probably the most annoying thing so far. You cannot turn it off while you're driving. So if you have it on, you find yourself on a long trip, you're either gonna have to pull over or fully take on driving yourself, which is what I've had to do. Other than that, the car steers great, it feels solid underneath you, and that's mainly because of the fact you have all these batteries. It just feels like it's just glued to the tarmac as you're driving, which I like. But whenever you hit pretty big bumps, you can feel the weight really pushing down on that suspension. And you know, it's good or bad depending on who you are. If you like that solid feel, great. And if you don't like feeling just that heavy machinery underneath you, there's no getting around the fact that this has that. The sound system on here is excellent because it is so quiet at highway speeds. You can really take in music if you're a music fan. And I'll be quiet for just a second, that way you guys can hear what it sounds like. And this is going 70 miles an hour. So not too bad. I can, you know, little taps here and there, you can hear that. And yeah, it's just a very quiet vehicle. That's one of the best things. I would say this is as quiet as some of Audi's best when it comes to like sound deadening. It's not quite Audi A8, Audi S8 levels of serenity in here, but I mean, it's pretty darn close. All right, you guys, so we're only about 30 minutes out right now, and the range has proven to be a lot better. We're also going through this massive, I don't know if this is smoke. Is this fire smoke or is this fog? I have no clue. Either way, right now I've traveled 100.4 miles and it's saying I have 130 miles remaining. So obviously doing the math there, that's 230 miles. That's awesome. That's really good. That's well above the EPA figures for this. Now remember, because this is the Sportback, this is actually more aerodynamically efficient than the non-Sportback e-tron. So the things you lose in terms of cargo capacity, you gain back when it comes to aerodynamic efficiency. So I'm very curious to see what this gets, because on the normal e-tron, I believe I actually got around 230 miles in real world driving. So my goal is to try to get around 240, 250 for this e-tron Sportback. That's what I'm gonna try to do, but I'm not gonna compromise my driving. I've been staying the speed limit the whole time. Back going through LA, I was going around 74, 75 for about an hour. Right now, everyone seems to be going closer to the speed limit, which is 65. I'm going 68 right now in the middle lane. So, you know, and there's lots of cars today, so I've been catching the drafts from a lot of vehicles. It's not like I'm on a clear road, which would mean I'm taking on a lot more of that air, therefore creating more resistance, slowing the car down. So there's factors like that you have to keep in mind as well. But either way, the car is proving to be somewhat efficient. I'm getting 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, that's not the most efficient, but in terms of Audi e-tron standards, that's pretty efficient for what the car usually gets. But either way, guys, I'll let you know what we get as soon as we arrive, and then once I'm done with my event, we'll go ahead and head back and see how far we can get before we have to stop and charge. All right, you guys, so I actually just got to the event, which is the new Nissan Rogue, so be sure you guys stay tuned for that. But looks like I traveled 142.2 miles, got 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour, 2.5 hour drive, 98 miles remaining. So they are going to valet this. So let's say that takes away 1 or 2 miles, and then we will begin our trip back home and see how far we can get. All right, so just got finished with the Nissan event. Now we're hopping back in the e-tron, and we're going to go ahead and head back. All right, you guys, so we have arrived at the charging station, and it looks like I got 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which equated to 218.3 miles. I have 12 miles remaining, so that rounds out to right at 230.3 miles of range if I were to have continue going those 12 miles. And that's actually the exact same as I got on the Audi e-tron. Actually, about 1 mile more, because the Audi e-tron was 229 miles. This is 230.3, so you get 1 mile, I guess. Now, my test is by no means the, standard at all, but just based off of my personal experience, this is what I achieved. Now, I will admit I drove faster in this than I did in the e-tron because I was more of in a rush. I was trying to get to the event, and then I'm in a rush to get back home as well. So I was driving a bit faster, and that obviously showed in the range. Do I think this could do between 240, 250? Yes. If you're doing mostly city driving, I do think real world you can see those numbers for sure. But once again, I was driving in full efficiency mode. If you're driving in dynamic or anything like that, you'll probably get right at what the EPA says, maybe just a little bit less in the real world. All right, you guys, so I'm sure y'all wanted to see this, but charging the e-tron, wow, that train is loud. Charging the e-tron, it's 5:47 right now, but before I get into this charge, so just know that right now we are doing 136 kilowatts. That's all fine and dandy. We're at 12%. So back to what I was saying, it's 5:47. Here's the absolute worst part about this car. So Audi, if you're watching this, please do something about this. But I got here at 5 o'clock, and I am just now getting around to charging this car because I always have an issue with these Electrify America stations. They never work. I always have to call customer service, and there's just always something going on. This one, I used this charger 3 times. I used that charger 3 times, had to call, wait 20 minutes, talk to someone. And then finally, they told me this one was the one that was up and working. So very, very frustrating. Now, most people will charge at home, but if I was on my way somewhere on a road trip and I had to take a 47-minute detour because of something like this, I would be absolutely livid. So I have to throw this in there because personally, I had somewhere to be today and I'm just super furious. But I'm not gonna take my personal anger out that much on Audi because it's an amazing car. It really is. But this charging infrastructure, if they can't keep up with the demand or if they can't give that level of quality, I say get rid of them and do something else because that is unacceptable. But either way, guys, let's go ahead and see how long this takes to charge. All right, so we just hit 80% and it is 6:15. So took about 28 minutes to get to 80%, so that's pretty good, and it didn't actually hit the peak 150 kilowatt charging rate, so that's even more impressive. Now, once again, the charging rates are good. Technically, Electrify America is one of the most advanced charging stations, but in terms of just the reliability of the stations themselves, they really, really need to do a better job, because if I'm paying as much money as I'm paying for this car, I do not ever want to have an experience like that. And the fact that it's happened multiple times with me is kind of an issue. But other than that, let's go ahead and wrap up this review. Well, everyone, that's going to wrap up my review of the Audi e-tron Sportback. I think this thing is really cool. I think the looks, personally, I prefer it well over the normal e-tron. As a matter of fact, I prefer this Sportback look over every other Sportback SUV that currently exists. I think this pulls it off so well. This color is great, and this Edition 1, obviously not everyone will be able to get, but I think the Sportback is just a very attractive vehicle. The range will be enough for most people. I do wish it had more range, but seriously, Electrify America, get your charging network up and running better. Once again, if I were paying this much money for this car, I would be so upset if I had to deal with that every time I needed to make a trip. But let me know what you guys think of the e-tron Sportback. Comment below. Be sure to subscribe and follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I'll see you guys in the next review.